Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this show is going to be about a woman who was convicted of murdering her children, or, well, it gets a little confusing. One child, but maybe not the other, but maybe both. And this happened back in 1965. Her name is Alice Crimmins, and it's been likened to the Casey Anthony case, but way back when. And there's a whole bunch of shall we say, more of a social take on the case as opposed to an evidentiary take on it. And so I'm going to get into all of that because I'm going to attempt, and I say attempt, to analyze the case as to who most likely did it. Was it Alice, the mother? Was it her estranged husband? Was it Alice with some help by a boyfriend? Or was it a complete stranger? So it is a fascinating case, but there is incredibly little information available on it. And just before I get started with this, I just want to show you what limited information there is, just so you know. I watched this show, which is a crime. It's a documentary series called A Crime to Remember, and this one is called Go Ask Alice. It's our first one. I have to say, it's gorgeous. It's beautifully done in the way it's done. They have actors playing parts, but it's really lovely. I have to say, I really, really liked it. It's based on a book by Kenneth Gross. I can't pronounce his name. Gross. Sorry. He wrote a book called The Alice Crimmins Case. A clever title, and this is him and Ken Gross, and he is featured in the documentary along with a number of other journalists and so forth. And he highly influences the documentary. But I will say this: if you're going to do one or the other, some people say, I only have so much time. Read a book of 400 pages or watch this, 44-minute documentary. Do watch the documentary and skip the book. Sorry, Ken. I was exhausted reading a book. I think that's why I moved this show an hour later. I was still trying to finish his book, and I was losing my mind trying to read it. He had a lot of stuff in there I thought was unnecessary. I couldn't quite half the time get where he was going. It was confusing. I couldn't get the details I wanted, and I don't think they exist anyplace. So this book was like the only place you could get them, and it wasn't that good. And I will say this: when you're a journalist, what you should not do is be on a particular side. And he clearly thinks she's innocent, which is fine if he thinks she's innocent, but he presents the book in that entirety that she's innocent. So does, for the most part, the documentary. And so therefore, it's very hard to just get unbiased evidence. And so you can make up your own mind. It's extremely difficult. So anyway, I struggled through that. Don't do it. Just watch this. This is on Tubi, and it's free. So hey, it's really a cool method of documentary work. I was real impressed. It's very film-like, I mean, it's like it's done real nicely. So I would recommend that if you want to watch anything. I'm just going to check here in the chat room here. A few more people have rolled in. I think Tetrafin just rolled in, and Clarissa says, agree, good video, just hardly any information. It really was. It was so nice to watch. I enjoyed it. I didn't know that I was getting something accurate and enough information. So anyway, if you're new to the channel, let me go here. Please do like and subscribe. And also, if you'd like to be in the chat room, please do join Patreon. I'm having problems. Last time I tried to click on it, I clicked on a completely wrong thing and showed a beautiful scene behind me like my house was now a $1 million house with a piano in it. I'm at the right place today. Just a simple screen. If you want to be in the chat room, please do join Patreon. It's in the link below. It's $5 a month, and there are 8 shows every month, 2 per week. And one is 2 per week. I can do math. Let's see. 8 shows divided by 4, 2. Yeah. I think that book is turning me over the edge. Certainly God, I think it has. Anyway, there is a hangout during the weekend. There's a live show on the weekend like this one. And if you don't want to do that, it's fine. Please do subscribe. Everything is available to the public once the live show is done. Okay, I'm going to move on now. I must be losing my mind early in the show. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. Let me have a sip of soda here. Anyway, let's go on now. Oh, that was kind of cool. I agree with that, Rainey. They told the story from the point of view of a third party. They had like one of the neighbors, as if she were the neighbor, and they did a whole it was filmed as if it were in the time and the woman was talking, which was, I'd say it was very, very enjoyable to watch. I haven't seen any of their other shows, but I think I might look at a few of them. My only problem is, and this is always what it comes down to, what's the purpose of the show? And the purpose of the show, I thought, was social commentary. That's what I think the whole show is about, social commentary. And I'm going to get into that, as opposed to analysis of the evidence. It's not really crime show, it's really a social commentary show. And it may be just this particular one, and the rest of the documentaries are different, but that's what that came across to me. All right, so any of you who do not have a clue about this, oh, you watched more? Okay, TKM, hi. You watch more, and they're all well done. I'm not surprised that they are. I thought it was pretty nice, but I still didn't learn as much as I would like to. I should watch the one about the plane bombing. I will check it out. All right, let me read you this Wikipedia has a very small thing on this, and there's almost nothing on this case. I looked for good information on this case. It doesn't exist. So one time somebody asked me to do this case a long time ago, and it's funny, when I started watching the video, I'm like, haven't I seen this? And I did, because somebody asked me about 2 years ago to do this case, and I did watch it. And I thought, I just don't have enough information. So I let it drop. And then last night, because I hadn't picked a show, because I've been slammed this week, they said, why don't you do this one? I'm like, okay. And then I went, oh, it's this one. So it's a tricky one to do, but I do have things to say. So anyway, let me read you the quick Wikipedia thing, because it is actually just the basic information you do need to know. Alice Crimmins is an American woman who is charged with killing her 2 children. And her 2 children, this would be Eddie Jr. on the right, who was 5 years old, and Alice Marie, known as Missy, on the left, who was 4 years old. And so she basically, the basic thing is, she got married to him both of them are pretty young. They're both from Catholic families. She was dating some guys her daddy didn't like. And then Eddie came along, and dad liked Eddie, seemed like a decent enough bloke. And so she married him and had the 2 children quite quickly. 1, 2. I'll get into what happened after she had the second one. Anyway, they both went missing on July 14th, 1965. Alice Marie's body was found that day. So by the time the parents called in, she called in first. She called her husband ex. Well, he was not an ex yet. They were in a custody battle, and he was living separately in an apartment. She called him and said, "Did you take the kids?" Because she said she went in the bedroom and the kids weren't there. She called and said, "Did you take the kids?" He's like, "No." She goes, "Are you joking? Are you messing with me?" And he's like, "No." And so then eventually they called the police together. That was in the morning. Alice Marie's body, Missy, was found that day. So just in the afternoon, they found her body fairly close by, within a mile. And Eddie Jr.'s body was found 5 days later, approximately a mile from the home on the side of a road. After numerous criminal trials and appeals, Crimmins was convicted of manslaughter of Missy's death. The manslaughter charge is a little weird, and I'll get into that. Crimmins' children, Eddie Jr. and Missy, disappeared from the garden apartment in Kew Gardens Hills in the Queensboro of New York City on July 14th, 1965. Later that day, Missy's strangled body was found, which is why I have trouble with a manslaughter charge. Strangling people doesn't usually mean manslaughter. That's a little weird, but a strangled body was found. 5 days later, Eddie's body was discovered, but authorities were unable to identify the cause of his death. By that point in time, his body was pretty much decomposed to the point of we don't know what killed him. However, I can't see any information here at all about things that you can determine from a body that has been decomposed. For example, if you don't have any bullet holes in the head and the skull and the body, probably the child wasn't shot. If you don't see like marks from like a knife on bones, probably wasn't stabbed to death. Could he have been smothered? Sure. Could he have been strangled like his sister? Sure. They didn't seem to say his skull was crushed, so he wasn't beaten to death with a large object, but blunt force trauma. There's no information really on his actual autopsy that I found, and so it's basically like, well, they didn't know what killed him. Okay, so she was never charged in his murder. Well, actually, she was, but it's only because it was in connection with the sister later on. But there was a whole big argument over we don't even know that he was murdered, which is true. Therefore, and so I'll read the rest of it. You'll see what she actually ended up getting charged with. Okay, so no evidence could be found tying anyone to the deaths. That is true. Crimmins was followed and covertly recorded by the New York Police Department for 3 years. That's crazy. I mean, they believe she was guilty, obviously. And they had her boyfriend mic'd and everything. They mic'd the heck out of her apartment. They mic'd her phone. They had everything. And she pretty much knew she was being recorded. So she didn't let anything slip if she had anything to let slip. She was found guilty of the manslaughter of Missy and sentenced to 5 to 20 years imprisonment. This conviction was overturned on appeal. And in 1971, a second trial resulted in Crimmins being convicted of the first-degree murder of Eddie Jr. and the manslaughter of Missy. In 1973, both convictions were overturned before Crimmins was reconvicted of the manslaughter of Missy in 1973. She was paroled in 1977. And she's gone on to marry one of the boyfriends she was messing around with, who was kind of the mobster dude. They've apparently gone into quiet life, and that's that. The Casey Anthony trial has been compared by some in the media to the Crimmins trial. Interesting. I don't know that the trials had any a match. I think you have two women who are accused of murdering their children for the purpose of freeing themselves from those children so they could go live the life they wanted. That's, in my opinion, the connection. We don't have something like, basically that's the connection. And the fact that they weren't clearly killed by the two women. Like, let's say, for example, I always forget this woman's name. The woman in Massachusetts, somebody help me out here, as I'm blanking again. I always forget her name. Why is it? Like Andrea Yates clearly killed her children. Everybody knows she killed her children. The question is why. Who's the woman in Massachusetts? Always Lindsay Clancy. Oh, I beat y'all to it. Lindsay Clancy clearly killed her children and then jumped out a window and attempted suicide. Now, why she did it is another question, but there's no question that she did it. The question would be, was she in psychosis, or did she just want to get rid of the kids? Like Casey Anthony, in my opinion, but didn't do anything like try to get away with it. She just did it and then said, no, I was crazy. That would be, that's a connection. It's basically saying she's like Casey Anthony. She just wanted to get rid of her kids so she could go party. I think that's the basic thing, but not the trial. I don't see any connection between the trials, just the motive. All right. So got that, guys? All right. So that's where we start. All right. Now I want to go to the book. Um, yeah. Let me, I got to pull up the beginning of the book. I want to point out something. The one thing in the beginning of this book, I actually did like something that he said, and I was really impressed, and I was therefore looking forward to the rest of the book, and then I wasn't as impressed. But he talks about he says, I was a young reporter for the New York Post when I was assigned to cover different cases. Anyway, he talks about here in the beginning that he's talking about, this is 1965, and I often talk about the problem we have with understanding the truth, because the media is not necessarily there to tell you the truth. They're there to get a story. They're there to get readership. They're there to get clicks, whatever it is, whatever age you're in. And of course, I'm of this age, so I see the problem as of today, but it doesn't mean the problem didn't exist. And the way he explained it, I thought was just very interesting. So what we learned back then about this case and what we learn about it now it's tricky. I just want to read it just a little because I just think it's interesting. Filtering out, they're trying to filter out the information about Alice Crimmins. Okay. What was particularly treacherous about the process was its elusive effect. The newspapermen would salt the accusation into conversations with editors at their home offices. Editors are always dredging reporters for spice or gossip, even when it can't be printed. Editors are expected to know more than they print. They obtain the material from reporters who are then credited with a kind of mystical expertise. The reporters get the word from detectives who may be trying to manipulate public opinion, impress superiors, or apply pressure to a suspect. I think that's actually very, very true, because if they're going to let anything leak, they're going to do it for some purpose. Whether or not these specific accusation sees daylight, it poisons the coverage. And the process all hangs on the thread of a subtle code. The editor does not challenge the reporter too closely because the reporter has privileged sources. They're always like, a source told me. A source. I always hate this crap. I'm like, who the hell is a source? You could just say there's a source, and it doesn't have to be one. The editor finds it comfortable to believe that the reporter is in intimate contact with policemen who must be protected. The reporter does not question the detective too closely for fear of drying up his source. And that, again, is true. The editor would like to believe that the reporter really knows something special. The reporter is convinced that the detective has complete access to the facts of the case. The detective is suspicious of the reporter. He worries that the reporter knows too much to be manipulated and is only looking for information critical of the police. This is just really good. What takes place are shadowy conversations which each party tries to find out how much the other one knows while suggesting his own familiarity with the facts. This makes for exaggeration, arid error. And it's supposed to be a mid-error. I'm not sure what that even means. There grows a fund of, quote, common knowledge, which never has to be proven and is accepted by those who want to demonstrate their connection with the case. And this is all true. So this is why even at the time a case is occurring, you don't know who to believe, because everybody's got an angle. And so people will jump on angles. They say, oh my God, if they want to believe everything the police say, or they hate somebody, they'll say the police are right. If they hate the police and think that person's innocent, believe the person's innocent, they're like, oh my God, the police are liars. So it's just like, who do you believe? What a hot mess. Yeah, pretty much. So in 1965, the common knowledge was that Alice Crimmins had killed her children, was burnished with rumors of scandal. The mother had slept around indiscriminately. There were not many women police reporters that season. It would take an extreme coverage for one to go against the boy's explanation. Like some black policemen, women have to be tougher to prove themselves. That is actually true. So, and then I'm not going to go into the rest of it, but I just thought I was really impressed by that, because this is true. So this puts us in a position of, who do we believe, especially years and years, decades from when this even happened. Things get rewritten in history for whatever the popular agenda is. And it seems in this particular case, right or wrong, and whether she's guilty or not guilty, the agenda was to say, back in 1965, women were expected to be housewives, stay home, do what they were told, and not have their own lives. And because this woman dared to be freer in her lifestyle, that got her labeled a murderer. So, yeah. All right. So now I want to read, before I get into what happened as far as the theoretical little bit of evidence we have so we can start analyzing who might have done it. I want to read you something from the first chapter of his book. And I want somebody to jump in here. It's similar to trading, like speculation. I got it there. So I want y'all to jump in when you see the problem I have with this book. Okay, chapter 1. She slapped off the alarm clock and heard the sound of the air conditioner and the silence. It was morning, and the woman of the house woke up with an abrupt feeling of dislocation, listening to the mechanical sound of an air conditioner instead of breathing. When she had separated from her husband months earlier, she had replaced him in the bedroom with an air conditioner. When she awoke, she still felt a mixture of strangeness and relief. She moved quickly in the morning without a sluggish aftermath of sleep, as if keeping an urgent rendezvous. She washed, hardly staring at her face in the mirror. It was an interesting face with powerful internal animation. Some of her friends were more beautiful in a classic brittle way. Their bones might photograph better, the skin might show smoother texture, but cameras couldn't capture what flashed behind this woman's amber eyes. She radiated something elusive, as if she harbored and was privately amused by some vast secret. As at the lounges and bars where women tested themselves insatiably, this woman had a life force more compelling than most of her peers. She worked quickly on her makeup. It was an important part of her. The makeup would be misunderstood later, dismissed as cold vanity. Blah, 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 blah. There we go. Sounds like a made-up story. Where does the writer get all this info? Is it correct? Well, that's a good question. So I'm going to move a little further. I'm going to read a little bit more. Let's see, where is it? Let's see, I'm trying to see. Trying to find some more of the. If the unusual quiet from the children's room registered with Alice, it was stacked under the other considerations of the day. As she paused to stare at her carefully arranged face under the sprayed frame of strawberry blonde hair, there was one important aspect to her face she could not be disguised by powders and rouge: defiance. So what I'm basically trying to get across is what you noticed. It's a fictionalized account of what is going on in the mind of Alice Crimmins. When you write a book, it's supposed to be factual, true crime. You don't write what you think is going on in their head and make it into a fictional account. Now, mind you, you see a lot of this presented in the documentary as well, because the documentary also fictionalizes. And I have seen documentaries done very well that do not fictionalize anything. They tell you the facts and they have people, give the information. But when you start having these basically actors coming in and acting the parts of people and expressing certain things, and they're trying to show you what happened in a visual way where you're including emotions and choices that you do not even know were true at the time. You're essentially trying to influence the people as to how they think about her. And this is what the author does. He does believe she's innocent. It's fine if he believes she's innocent. What I want him to present evidence, not to make her some character in his own mind, that he's going to then present her in such a way that we all automatically feel connected to her and understanding of her, because he has not a freaking clue whether that is the way she actually thought. So that is really problematic. All right. So, I'm going to get into this, Clarissa. The first thing a mother does is check on her kids. But, Taylor says, is this another makeup equals psychopath theory? Interesting you bring that up. wait a minute. I think it was like, if you don't wear makeup, you're a psychopath. But since she wore so much makeup, she wouldn't be one. So, that was from another show I did, and it was like somebody in this stupid website had this theory. So we half of us decided we guess we're psychopaths. So no, not when she's not checking on the kids when she's getting it on with a dude in the bedroom. Okay, there was no dude in the bedroom that day. Okay, so let's go to what happened the day of. Okay, so essentially, there's a couple more things I want to let you know. All right, so she was married to Eddie. I think that's his name. Sorry, I'm blanking here. Okay, Eddie. All right. So she got bored with him essentially. He was a regular guy, and he drank. He drank alcohol, and he did his job, and then he wanted to go drink with his buddies, and she was left home with the kids, and she wasn't thrilled about it. Now, one of the things they point out in the documentary, which is one of the things that irritates me, is they bring in some of these concepts like, well, you married young in those days, and girls didn't know what they were getting into when they got married. And suddenly they found themselves in this marriage situation, a family situation, having children, being a mother. And it was like they didn't know what they were getting into. I'm pretty much sure that's true for the boys as well. I'm pretty much it's true today. Nobody actually knows till you're there. You don't know what it's like to go to college till you go to college. You don't know what it's like until you get a job and you get that job. You don't know what it's like to be in a romantic relationship till you're in one. I mean, you can go on and on forever, because guess what? Until you do something you really don't freaking know. It has nothing to do with the times. So the fact that they try to make it sound like girls were they were totally oppressed in the sense that they were expected to get married and have children. And therefore, anything that happens afterwards, you can't really blame her for, because, she was forced by society into this role. Now, mind you, there was a bit of that, I have to say, is true, in the sense that my mother, for example, she was in the ice capades for a year, which is pretty cool. She was an only child that grew up in New England, in a very, very isolated kind of situation, but she learned how to skate. So she joined ice capades, and then she did some art school stuff, and she went to New York City and decided she wanted to live in New York City, which I still can't even imagine. But she did some work as a file clerk or something. Then she met my father in Rockefeller Center. He was a skater. So they met in Rockefeller Center, not a skater professionally. They both skated, and they met, and they married. And my father was an engineer, and they moved from New York City to Jersey, across the bridge there, and got themselves a little house, as you do when you first get one car. And she got pregnant, and she had 3 children. And I don't think she ever really loved being a mother. So I think she wanted to be an artist. I think she was kind of that kind of person who perhaps chose the traditional road and went, dang it, and she did become a watercolor artist after we were getting older, and she did watercolor. She was watercolor artist for years. Thousands of her paintings are out there. But would she choose something different today? She might. She might have said today, well, I don't have to get married, or I don't want to do that. But back in the day, you did. But we all grow up in ages where things happen and things are more expected. And so while that's true, my mother did, I don't know what to call it, accept her role. My father accepted his role. They had, not everything was bad. There were good things too. And there were choices that could be made that were healthy, as opposed to choices that, in this case, didn't seem to be very healthy. Now, I'm not saying she killed the kids. I'm just saying. So she got fed up with him because he was boring, and she wanted something more than having children. So apparently she got some birth control behind his back, and he found out about that. And he's like, what's this? Because he's Catholic. And she's like, well, and did she not want any more children, or was she planning to cheat on him so she didn't want to get pregnant by some other guy? Probably both. So anyway, she kicked him out of the house, and he's living in an apartment or a room someplace. And she got a job as a cocktail waitress, and She was quite pretty and very vivacious and started hooking up with a lot of men. Not one guy, a lot of men. And having more than one boyfriend, she had two main boyfriends at the time, brought men back to her apartment where her two children were, sleeping with them, having sex with them, and all that. And one of the complaints the father had, he said this. Let me see if I can find it. When he went for the children, maybe it's here. Hold on a second. I'm going to guess. Nope, not that. Oh, maybe I didn't put it up there. Okay, hold on. Let me find the. When he went for the children, this is what he said. When I find it. Okay, hold on. Okay, here we go. Okay. Immediately after the separation, this is from the court documents. He's trying to get custody of the two children. Immediately after the separation, my wife began to indulge herself openly and brazenly in sex, as she had done furtively before the separation. That's interesting. That note. Okay. My wife entertains one at a time a stream of men sharing herself in her bedroom until she and her paramour of the evening are completely spent. The following morning, the children wake up to see a strange man in the house. Okay. My son, who will be 6 years of age, is aware that something is going on that is not right. His statements to various people that his mother has a lot of men cousins that come over to the house and stay overnight, and his obvious embarrassment when he tells them about it is indicative of his awareness. And as far as I know, he's not lying. That is exactly what she was doing. And this guy was so suspicious. Apparently, he bugged her house and listened to her having sex with other men. Maybe he went a little overboard, But interesting enough, even though he was applying for custody of the kids and calling her out on this, from everybody's statements, it appears that he wanted her back. He was obsessed with her. He was madly in love with her, or whatever you want to call it. And he reminds me of Keith Papini, because Sherry Papini has had a lot of bizarre behaviors prior to getting kidnapped. But Keith was obsessed with her. And I think both of these guys, I think they thought they hit the lottery with the women that they got. Very attractive women, very the type of women that know how to make a guy feel good and all that kind of whatever. And they're so attracted to that. And they thought, wow, how did I get to be this lucky guy? I've got this incredible woman. So I think you all going to know what I say is that. What do I call guys like him? A femme fatale is a good. Yeah, she was a bit of a femme fatale, I would say. What would I call the husband? Thank you. Clarissa knows. Dolt. Yes, I personally think he's a dolt. And I think he's a dolt. And Harper rolls in with dolt. Everybody, you all know me too well. So yes, dolt. In that, if he wants to believe so much and he can be with her, and that they keep trying and trying and trying, thinking that they can fix the situation, or she's going to love him more again, and they ignore the things that are questionable about their behavior and try to play up the good side, which is a nice thing, but maybe you're just a little bit naive about what's really going on. And I think he's that kind. The police did question whether he was involved, but because he did have some odd behaviors, but he did really seem to love the kids and want to be with her. And he did appear to have an alibi that was pretty darn good. So I personally do not think he would take the children and kill them. And one could say, maybe he did that because that would have her need to be with him, because now they both lost the children. It would bring the two of them together, and then she would lean on him. I have seen that kind of scenario before, not quite like this, but let's see. I'm trying to think of how that works. I forgot what case that was now. But yes, sometimes a person will kill somebody close to the person, in order to get them to become devastated enough to need them more. So could that be true? Is that a German word for that? It's a trottel. That's interesting. Dog 2.0. So, but in this particular case, I don't really see it. And I do think that the alibi seems to stand. He was out drinking. So he was actually in public with a lot of people. I just don't see that as making a lot of sense. And mind you, she was at home at the time too. So that's an interesting problem. So my opinion, he was not involved, which goes to then leave Alice. Alice was some help, not him, one of the boyfriends, or a complete stranger. And she's just, because the police saw her as a questionable woman, they didn't like her, that they decided to ignore any other possible suspect. Now, one of the things she said early on was, "You're not looking for my kids." They were looking. Oh my God, they had helicopters. They had people going door to door. They were massive searches. So she just lied about that. That was simply not true. But while they were looking for the kids, the detectives were questioning her because they had to question her. And she was not happy about that. And so anyway, that's kind of the situation leading up to this going on. And now she was hooking up with two dudes, by the way. She had a guy who was in construction. He had like a good amount of money. It was one boyfriend. And then the other boyfriend was he was very wealthy. And both of them were married men, by the way, and she was hooking up with. And the one who was more of I think he was more mob connected. After all this ended, after she got out of prison, she actually married her and they moved away. He is the bigger suspect in helping her get rid of kids if there were two people getting rid of the kids than the other guy, in theory. So anyway, now let's go to the day before they went missing, and what actually happened. So that's a little confusing. Here we have the problem again. If I hear one thing in the documentary, I couldn't find it in the book, so I'm really confused about that. Anyway, one of the things she did in order to have a good time, by the way, was hire people. She had a housekeeper, someone she left the kids with. She had a 14-year-old teenage girl in the neighborhood that came and watched the kids a lot. So she found a support system to watch the kids so she could go, A, to work, and B, hang out with and party. One time, I do want to mention the one time. This is crazy. Let me find it in the book because let's see where it would be. Well, I got to figure out where I put it. Maybe I have to go with the boat. Okay, hold on. Boat. Okay, here we go. Yeah. All right. So this time, what happened was she had a maid, Evelyn Linder Atkins, and Evelyn claimed she owed her a bunch of, it was like $600, and she said that's not true. And they had this problematic relationship. Anyway, whatever the matter of the source of the conflict between the maid and Alice were, this is what happened. The maid called Eddie one Friday afternoon in February and told him that Alice had not returned from work, and she was left with the children, without food and without money. Eddie had rushed over and taken the children to his mother-in-law's house in the Bronx. Evelyn had never returned to the apartment in Q Hill, so she left. At that point, she quit her job. Now, the explanation from Alice was this. Where'd you hear this? I guess it's explanation actually to the detective. It was perfectly understandable, she said. She had gone on a bon voyage party aboard a boat with Tony Grace. That's the guy that she ended up marrying eventually. Tony Grace and Sal Lacorto and Charlie Fellini, a developer of Freedom Land. Alice went with a friend, Margie Fisher, who had an apartment above Alice's. They had too much to drink, and the men playfully locked them in a washroom. By the time they were out, the boat had sailed. There was no way to get off the boat, so Alice went to the Bahamas. Graves bought her an airline ticket, and she flew back to New York on Sunday night. But by then, Eddie had decided to fight her for the children. Wow. That's is there not a phone someplace? You know? That's crazy. Well, when you're looking at what kind of mother she is, and this is what people get angry about. They're criticizing how she was a mother to her children. There were some people said she was a wonderful mother. And what point did they say she was a wonderful mother? Because she apparently, I mean, anybody can be a wonderful mother sometimes. You know, you take your kids out for ice cream, you're a wonderful mother. They keep them clean. She was obsessed with cleanliness, so the kids were always clean. It doesn't mean you're a good mother. She essentially wasn't around very much, and she had other people watching them, and she would disappear and do weirdo things like this. So the story is a little sketchy there, yeah. So anyway, there's this other thing you got to know about, which is this: the children's room that they slept in together, two little kids, had a hook, one of these little locks, you know, with a little hook, you hook like that on the door. The claim is, and she says it happened when she was still with Eddie and Eddie was in the house, that Eddie Jr. had got up in the middle of the night or up in the morning and went to the refrigerator and raided it and ate so much he got sick from overeating. So they decided to put the hook on the door so he couldn't get out of the bedroom. Now, mind you, apparently she hooked that hook an awful lot, put the children in bed and hooked it. And Eddie, their strange husband, says he thinks that she was using that to keep Eddie Jr. from coming out and finding her screwing some guy in the living room or the bedroom or wherever. Why was he so hungry? That is another good question. I don't know the answer to that one. Yeah. So now, mind you, the claim is it only happened once. Isn't that an excessive thing to do from one time that the kid ate some food out of the refrigerator and got sick? I mean, there's other options as well. One could be, if you got a real issue, you lock the refrigerator rather than lock the door of the kid's bedroom. But apparently what she was doing was locking that bedroom door when they went to bed. And as the kids wanted their mommy, they couldn't come and find mommy because they couldn't get out of the damn room. To me, that's kind of creepy. I'm sorry, it's creepy to me. You don't do that to your kids. You don't lock the kids in the room. Now, she claimed, okay, so I'll get to the last day before they disappeared. Yeah, I personally think that's or so she could entertain. I think that's it. And it's like stay in your room. And then when she, I guess, finally let them out, then they were freed. There was a claim by somebody, and this is in the documentary. It's a very vague claim again, that they would climb out the window. There was a hole in the mesh in the window. And supposedly they like to throw toys out. I can believe that one. Then there was another one that actually climbed out of the window together and then went running around and did stuff. I don't know that that's true because I only heard this from this one source, as we talked about. What source are we talking about? How often did this happen? Was it I don't even know if it's true. Or whether it's a story being pushed because that would give an excuse for the children to get out of the residence on their own without the mother taking them out of the residence. So anyway, she got a little hooky thing on the door. So the day before the kids go missing, this again is a kind of a sketchy thing about what happened. And it's important to me because it would show maybe the state of mind of Alice as well as, just what's going on. Supposedly she apparently is not working that night or that day. So she's in the documentary, they say she took the kids on a picnic somewhere around 2 p.m. because she slept. This other thing. This is the other thing. I was thinking about this now. So she puts the kids to bed about 8:30 or 9, but she does night shift work. She does night shift work and she's not home till 4 or 5 in the morning half the time. And she tended to sleep late in the morning, like me, 10, 11, 12. You got the kids locked in the room that whole damn time. That's creepy. So anyways, they go on this picnic. supposedly. She takes them on a nice picnic. And then they stop at a store and they buy some food. And one of the claims she had is that she bought veal to make the kids for dinner and a couple of other items. And then they go home and see what happened first. I don't remember which happened first and which happened next. Hold on a second. Hold on 1 second. I want to be sure I get that correct. Hold on. I'm trying to remember if dinner goes first or the little. I think the dinner was first, but okay. Let me get dinner for kids. Let's see if that shows up here. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's see. So okay, this does say she went to the park. Okay. Okay, here it does say. I'm sorry, it's in both places. Okay, on Tuesday, she had piled the children. Okay, she decided to go on a picnic. What time? Oh, about 2:30. Okay. July 13th had been a perfect day. That's the day before. For a picnic, even if Alice Crimmins' days did start a little late. She was a night person who spent long tracts of time in bars and restaurants of Long Island. If she awoke before noon, there usually had to be a reason. The children learned patience or were taken care of by one of Alice's helpers. So she locks them in the freaking room and doesn't get up till noon. What, they've been in there for 15 damn hours? How did they go to the bathroom? How did they get out and they're hungry? I mean, there's no explanation about this time frame, which bothers me tremendously. On that Tuesday, she had piled the children into the front seat of her 4-year-old Mercury convertible and driven 6 blocks to the park. They had taken along meatball sandwiches and soda, and the children were too impatient to wait to eat. Little Eddie had gone down the slide again and again. Alice had pushed Missy on the swings until she got tired. Then she had sat with other mothers, listening half-heartedly to this one's grief for the mother-in-law, to someone else's dinner. Again, this guy's just making up shit. He has no idea what she was thinking. I'm pretty sure she didn't actually tell that to detectives. Guy's got to stop this nonsense. Anyway, so Alice remembers leaving the park at 4:30. Now, one of the reasons I think this park thing is interesting to me, and I don't have enough information to say exactly this could be true, but sometimes when people have a plan to eliminate somebody, the day before is a better day than the kids would normally have, or the husband would normally have, or the wife would normally have. In other words, the plan is to have this last day, the last day being something wonderful. It's a great memory. It's like, hey, if I'm going to kill you in the morning, at least I'm going to give you a nice day. And it's also possibly that you present yourself in such a wonderful way the day before, nobody will suspect you the day after. So that's just an interesting issue, and just to keep in mind. Alice remembers leaving the park about 4:30, so they stayed there theoretically 2 hours. She could pinpoint the time because she had to stop at a corner telephone booth to call her attorney. She knew he might not be there after 5, so she made certain to leave by 4:30. The telephone call was to Michael LaPena, the attorney representing her in the court custody suit. LaPena was busy and he told her he'd call back later. Told her to call back later. He would be working late. And then what happened? We came home. Oh, I picked up some things for dinner first. Okay, so now she picks up her dinner stuff. Alice said she stopped at a neighborhood delicatessen and bought a package of frozen food, a can of string beans, and a bottle of soda. Her purchases in the delicatessen were always modest and spur of the moment. She enjoyed cooking, but often she was carried away by the whim of a Sunday afternoon, summer afternoon. Are we making up stuff again, author? And would be forced to conjure meals on the run. She said she had bought frozen veal. At the time, it would seem a trifle, perhaps not worth noting. Later, a dispute would rage over whether it was in fact frozen veal or frozen manicotti, because the stomach contents of Missy did not have veal in them, had manicotti. So take it for what you will at this point. When Alice and the children reached home, a few neighbors saw them walking from the car to the apartment. So I think they did arrive home. Later, people would remember Alice walking with a brown grocery bag while the children skipped carefree ahead. Alice left the children outside to play while she went to call the lawyer. Blah, 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 blah. And she smoked a bunch of cigarettes and talked to him for a while. She learned the maid was going to testify against her. And then she made another call to a friend. Let's see what else is going on here. Oh, that was Tony Grace. That's the man she was dating, the married man she was dating, who was sort of mob affiliated. And she called him. And he's the one people suspect, if she was involved in what happened, that Tony might have helped her get rid of the kids. Okay. So Tony Grace, but let you know who he was. Anthony Grace was 52 years old, precisely twice the age of Alice Crimmins. He had a contracting firm, built highways and parks all over New York State. He had a lot of money, and he knew a lot of people in top places, let's put it that way. Anyway, so then it says here, okay, let me go to the next thing she says. Get away from Tony. I can't find it now. Okay, she says she feeds the children their dinner, and then she gets them in their bedclothes and she puts them to bed approximately, she says, 8:39. The 14-year-old girl who was a neighbor, teenage girl, she said she heard them saying her prayers. They had the window open. Apparently she had an air conditioner in her bedroom, but the kids did not. So they had the window open, the screen, and she could hear them saying their prayers. They said their prayers every night. Alice said that they were very religious kids. She wasn't religious at all, but her kids are religious. Anyway, so the kids go to bed at this 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then at 12, she watches TV, falls asleep, and then at 12 o'clock, she claims she goes into the room and takes the boy into the bathroom so he can go to the bathroom. She checks on Missy, but Missy doesn't want to get out of bed, so she just takes her son to the bathroom. And then takes him back to bed and puts him in bed and goes back out. And she said, well, I don't remember if I locked the door. Okay. The morning comes. And she gets up in the morning. Let me see if I can find it here, because this to me is the most interesting part. And one of you mentioned this issue about the morning. I've got to find it again. Let's see. Let me go with dog walk. She had this doggie. She just adored her dog. I think way more than the kids, in my opinion. She was really into that dog. Oh, come on out. Where's the dog? All right. The dog's name was Brandy. So can't find it. Wow. Oh. At any rate, I can't find it. She gets up in the morning, gets makeup on, gets dressed, and takes her dog for a walk. She doesn't check on the children and take her dog for a walk. She takes the dog for a walk, then brings the dog back, and then opens up the door and checks on the children, finds they're missing. Lord. I was just checking out some of your comments here. Yeah, the cop said it was a manicotti package in the trash can. Why? Yeah, why that would matter? Why she would say something different? Well, that's interesting. Like the day before a pet has to be euthanized. Yeah, that really nice last day. So one of the questions one has is if she were actually eliminating her children like Casey Anthony, that she might well have had the final last day for them, because that would be nice for them, because understand again, if she is a psychopath, then children are either useful or in the way, just like everybody else. Hold on, I got to sneeze. 6. Oh. Um, so kids did not seem to be a priority. No, I do not think they were. Thank you very much. And you only have to say it once to cover all my sneezes, which go up to, so far, only up to 11. They were not a priority. This is very clear, in my opinion. And I think you see that. Her life was not about the kids. Her life was about herself. The narcissism level is, now we can talk about makeup and all that. She put on heavy makeup. He claims this because some issue when she was a Catholic child, she had some skin condition, but she was very into her looks. And there was duly noted that, even right after the children went missing, she always looked good. She was that was very important to her. Her looks, her clothing, her enjoyment of life. She was all about that. And her children were kind of like an afterthought. And I guess if she could get somebody to watch them, she could. But if we look at Susan Smith, that's more like Susan Smith, in my opinion, than Kaylee Anthony. Did she finally get to the point where she wanted to hook up with these guys and, well, have Kaylee Anthony? She wanted to have her fun and not have to constantly worry about these kids. And secondly, that men don't really like women who have these kids hanging on to. Now, in the documentary, they say, at least one of them who keeps trying to give her, an out for everything, says, oh, well, she could just give those kids to Eddie and wouldn't have to worry about them. People always think that if a person's not interested in caring for the children, wouldn't it just be easier just to walk away and allow custody to go the other direction? Oh, no. Custody never goes like that. It's always still a battle. It's always still money you have to pay. Then there's a requirement for you to see the stupid kids. You know what I mean? You're always hooked to them forever and ever and ever. It's always a burden. And she said this, supposedly, I'll take them out of the country if I have to. I'll never let Eddie have them. I'd rather see them dead than with Eddie. Now, why was this? Why was this? First of all, whether it's true or not, I don't know that was recorded because he was wired at a certain point. And it's hard, and whether I can't find out this was when he was wired or when he just said she said this at one point in time. And was it true? I don't know. But sometimes it's easier to get rid of the problem altogether than to have to constantly deal with it. That's why men kill their pregnant wives or pregnant girlfriends. They do that, and people say, why don't they just let them have the kid? And because it's 18 years of you're going to have to pay child support. And then that kid knows who you are, and that kid wants to have a relationship with you, and you cannot walk away. But if they die, well, problem solved completely. The money problem is solved. The visitation is solved. Works pretty good. So she, but those children definitely were not a priority. And so now we get to the issue of the manicotti issue. And that came down to what was left in Missy's stomach, because he was so decomposed. They don't get anything out of that. They're looking for time of death. She was found just in the afternoon after she was reported missing. And there is some information about what happened as far as the rigor mortis and the bugs, but it doesn't make sense to me what's in his book. Again, I don't trust his book. He said, Missy's legs, overstuffed like sausages, were stiff now with rigor mortis. The knees, smudged with little scabs from exuberant tumbles and careless play. I wish she'd stop doing that. Were lifeless. No kidding, she's dead. I mean, this is a stupid sentence. The worst part was her head. She looked as if she might be sleeping, and the pretty blonde hair and once bright blue eyes were covered with fly egg larvae. Does anybody see a problem here? All of you who've been studying any kind of forensics and stuff, that, what do you say about the rigor mortis and the larva issue? Does anybody have a guess on that? No, as I said, problem not solved. Problems never solved. No, she's going to have to pay child support, and the kids are going to want to see her. Problem definitely not solved. Yeah, if you could give them to a foster family, you'd be better shape, because if you abandon the kids, essentially turn them over to welfare, and somebody else adopts them, you're okay, because you're not on the you don't have to pay anything, you don't have to see them if you don't want to. But when the kids are with the ex, you still got that problem. So, what's your thoughts on rigor mortis and the fly egg larva? So she was found the same day. She was. So what's off in this? At least I think it's off. I'm sitting here trying to understand it. My problem is I don't think those two things go together very well. Rigor mortis, I'm reading this now. Rigor mortis appears approximately 2 hours after death. Well, as far as she goes, so Lisa, the other kid is missing 5 days, so he's there's not much information there. But the question was when she went missing the night before. That's what they're trying to figure out. Did she go missing before midnight? Because she claims she went in and saw the children at midnight, but did she really see the children at midnight, or something already happened to at least Lisa? Or did it happen after midnight? The other boyfriend says he called her at 10 and she answered, and then he called her at 2 o'clock in the morning and she didn't answer. Because people say, well, he was so drunk, maybe he didn't call the right number, which could be true. It would have been too soon, says Lori, for rigor mortis and larva, or how to pronounce that, or both. I think it's the both that's bothering me here. Rigor mortis appears approximately 2 hours after death in the muscles of the face, progresses to the limbs over the next few hours, completing between 6 to 8 hours after death. Now, it was hot, it was summer, so that it speeds up rigor mortis. But the other thing is confounding to me is that the larvae don't usually appear that early. So I just don't know. A rigor dead before midnight. Well, she was found, not necessarily. If she was found at, what is she found at? 4 in the afternoon, somewhere, something like 2 or 4 in the afternoon. They wanted her to be dead before midnight I don't know what the reasoning was on that, because that would be like 14 hours. But see, I don't have the autopsy report. So just because this guy says her legs were like sausages, and what does that mean? How much rigor was there? Was the rigor actually going away at that point, or was it still there? I don't know. And why were the buggies larvae? Why were they not just eggs? Why are they already crawling around? That usually takes longer. Like maybe, I think it's 24 hours something before that starts. So, or is it because the heat of the summer speeded it up? There's a lot of questions here. And what I would like the autopsy reports. I would like the police reports. I would like to get a professional who's really good at understanding the heat issues in that. And I don't know. Oh, well, I don't know if the picnic happened, but they came home. People saw them, and the girl heard them. I believe that. I think she did. They all came home. I think they got in bed. That far, I think they got. But what's frustrating me in the book is that if you're going to write a book, you don't even want to you want to make a fictionalized version of this stuff and throw this stuff out there and use fancy, make it literary, but you're not telling me what the details are. And so that's why I'm annoyed by the book and the documentary for that. So we quite frankly don't know. That's the answer I can give you. We don't know when Lisa actually died. Now, it didn't mean her body didn't have to be placed there. Her body could be in the house. She could have died at 10 o'clock and then taken out of the house at 2 o'clock in the morning. We just don't know. Just don't know. Okay, let's see what Lisa has to say here. Onset 2 to 6 hours post-mortem, and initial period of relaxation, the muscles stiffen, and yep. Yeah, it starts as small, muscles go to bigger, and then it works. But heat has a tremendous amount to do with it. So I just don't know. So full rigor, okay, full rigor, 6 to 24 hours postpartum. And yeah, it can be very, very sketchy there. It's hard to know. And then decomposition breaks down the muscle. So it would seem to me, I'm okay with I'm okay with the rigor mortis. I find the claim that there was a larva running around makes no sense to me. Maybe eggs, yes, but larva, no. I don't know. Just like, so I'm a little confused over that. So I just don't trust him. So I think, yes, I'm sure it's probably rigor mortis. I don't think, but the question is when, and I don't think you can prove exactly what the time of death was because of the heat issues and all that. It's very hard. Rigor mortis is not as clear as people think it is as far as exactly when it gets to this stage, and this stage. So just aren't absolutely sure. So, and everybody who's watching this can read all these good things that are being written in the chat room. It's quite complicated. It's more complicated than people understand. And if you go down to like the body farm, where they do all kinds of experiments with bodies, they find out things can vary tremendously. And a lot of it has to do with heat. Sometimes has to do with how much the body was in action before they got killed, or whether they were just laying there. There's all kinds of things that, influence. Like, did somebody, the body of the girl could have been moved from the hot room into the air conditioned room, right? And then it would slow down the decomp. So that could be done too. So just, we don't know. What's stated is there's a woman that pops up and she sends this letter like a year and a half later and says she saw this man and woman. She saw her and this man, and she doesn't identify the man, going to this vehicle, and she's carrying a baby. She's carrying something in her arms, and this little boy walking the little boy, but carrying Missy, whatever her name is, Missy, like this, a child, somebody like this. And when they get to the car, the guy supposedly takes the baby out of her arms and like chucks it in the car. The 4-year-old, not the baby, chucks it. She's like, "Don't do that." And he says, "Doesn't matter now." And then the boy gets in the car and they all drive away. That's a story. It's told in court. And yes, it's a nutty lady across the street. That's correct. Now, there's a lot of what info are you talking about, Lisa S? I didn't find anything useful. There's a lot of stuff which is not useful. So we have this woman who was kind of a nutcase, as they claimed, and she didn't identify herself originally. She wrote this letter and says, "Hey, I saw this," and then they tracked her down, which is pretty amazing. But they're like, "Oh, that's that nutter," and she gave the story, but so much time had passed before she wrote the original letter. We don't know if already out in the media was all the stuff about her and the guy she was dating, and what, who knows? So I don't know if the woman completely made up the story or that she saw something. And that's the problem. So let's stop at this point and say, was she even involved? Or was it, in other words, if she had help, she would still be involved. But I want to back up just for a second. I don't think he's involved. And the other possibility is that it's a complete stranger. Now, the thing that they show in the movie is that this is staged, of course. This is a fictionalized part, but here supposedly the screen is like not in the window, and underneath the window is this baby carriage and a box. Okay. And they never quite say the purpose and meaning of that. I'm assuming they're claiming that somebody could have used that to crawl into the window and then take the children. There's another confusing bunch of crap, which says there's a bureau in front of the window that the detective said there was a like dust that wasn't disturbed, so nobody could have come in and out. The kids couldn't have gone over, and nobody could have come in because the dust would have been disturbed. And then there's claims that wasn't true. But for those kids to go missing, one of two things would have happened if it was a stranger. First of all, the thing is supposedly locked from the outside of the kid's room. So I'm sorry. They couldn't leave the room and go out the door. They would have to go out the window. Okay. The person coming in, that person coming in theoretically get by her and then go and unlatch the door and take the kids out. That's theoretically possible. Or the person had to crawl in the window and get those 2 kids and get both kids out. Theoretically, dad could do that more likely than a stranger, because they might say, shh, we're gonna go on a little adventure. Shh, don't tell mommy. And they're like, whatever, she never pays attention to us anyway. Yeah, let's go, daddy. That's possible, except that he's got a pretty good alibi for everything. And I just don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. But he's the only one I think could do that easily. Otherwise, you have to literally get, like the Madeline McCann case, only instead of taking 1 child, you take 2, You've got some stranger, would be a pedophile. But when they do the autopsy on Missy, she's not been sexually assaulted. She's been strangled, but not sexually assaulted. And she is killed. She is either killed before she leaves the house or just after she leaves the house, which pedophiles do kill fairly quickly. But what would be the point of taking both kids? I mean, if you theoretically you should, if you like little girls and you want to sexually assault them, you just take her. If you like boys who want to sexually assault, you just take him. Maybe you want to do both of them, but she wasn't even done. So, it's like, so what was the purpose of kidnapping the kids and killing them? Makes no sense. I can't come up with a good stranger story here at all. I cannot. So I'd have to go back to the most likely suspect, which would be her, or her with somebody else. Would somebody else help her? Like the guy who ends up marrying her after she comes out of prison. Either he thinks she's absolutely innocent and just stood by her, which would be amazing, or he did something with her and it's like, yeah, we're in this together. So, and I know what. But the other interesting thing would be, which strikes me as really odd, is if the woman, the crazy woman, was correct and actually saw something, why would one of the children be already dead and the other child be still alive? That's kind of weird, maybe that's why they went for a manslaughter. Like, it was an accidental death that she strangled her daughter. And then she was like, oh man, I strangled my daughter. And now my son saw that and he's going to rat me out. So we're going to go for a ride. And then you get rid of him too, because he's a witness. Possible. It's also possible that she could have just killed both of them in there. It's possible. She could have given them their last day and said, well, that's it. Put them in bed, get them all comfy, and just strangle them with their bedclothes. Because she was strangled with her bedclothes. Missy was strangled with her, the little arm things. She was strangled with bedclothes. She could have done that, but you put the child, you pat the child on the back, and then you strangle them so the face is in the pillow, you have smothered them, and then that one's dead. The other one doesn't even know what happened. You go over and take care of him too. And then you pick up a body and you take it out to the car and put it in your car, take a few. They were found in 2 different places, which is also kind of weird. Why would you put the girl's body in one place and the boy's body in another place? That's a strange one. And I can't say I come up with a very good reason for that. He was like, yeah, I can't come up with a good reason. Supposedly he was in the blanket that was supposedly missing, which is also vague. And the other possibility, she did, say killed one kid and then called her boyfriend and said, hey, I don't know what to do. I accidentally killed my daughter. So he's like, well, you can't, your son saw you. Yes. Well, okay, well, I'm coming over, and I'll come to your house and we'll just take them both out. And I guess we'll have to just take care of things, because I do those kind of things anyway, The information is so limited that now, might ask me in a court of law, would I found her guilty? I don't know, because I really don't know what was presented in that court of law. The documentary spent a whole lot of time trying to basically trash her character, which I think is pretty easy to do, quite frankly. Doesn't seem like a very nice person. She does seem highly narcissistic, but not psychopathic. So she's hard to like. Doesn't mean she killed her kids, but she is hard to like. It's like Casey Anthony, she's hard to like. But all the evidence did, in my opinion, support that Casey Anthony eliminated her daughter so she could go have a good time. But I don't know if I were in a court of law whether I would have thought that the evidence was strong enough. But I just don't, at this point, I just can't see anybody else. But that's not, you can't eliminate suspects and say, well, the last one standing is the person who did it, therefore they're guilty and they get to go to prison. Can't really do that. And so I don't know what they actually presented in court because they're spending so much time in these documentaries and in the book trying to say she was just railroaded because people didn't like her behavior. That I feel like there may be way more that was a reason that the jury, which they said, well, it was 12 men, that's why they found her guilty. But there may have been another reason that the evidence there was enough evidence that fit together. But I just don't know. I actually just don't know. But Taylor, hi. It seems like psychological and behaviorally perpetrator points to Alice as someone known in the home. Based on hard evidence, perpetrator is unknown. Yeah, at least, again, from outside. If I were working this case and was able to go into the police department and look at everything or be in a courtroom and hear every single thing they said, I might go, well, duh, That's one of the frustrating things. And why I always tell people, it's an educational channel to learn from, not because I can necessarily pronounce things as an absolute, because I just don't have the details. And so I can't do that. But how far, I don't really know. I was looking for, that's something I would have liked to have seen a map of, which I didn't find. I will say this. Obviously, I said to you was it last night? Was the night before? That this was a late choice of a case. And I've been slammed this week with work. And I also went to a rodeo last night with my granddaughter and daughter. The rodeo was supposed to be, I thought it was 2 hours. It was 4 hours. It was great. I mean, it was really great. So my granddaughter is learning to barrel race. So it was cool. The barrel racing came at 11:30 at night with these little kids out there barrel racing. It was like, wow. It's like, it's like, couldn't you put them earlier? But so we were out really late. And so I said, I've just been slammed. So that's why I ended up moving the show to 5 o'clock today to even get through the stuff. But I do not know exactly. I want to see if I could see a map. Neither one were that far from the house, but they weren't in the same place. And I think that is odd. I mean, and I'm sitting here thinking about it. And sometimes what happens with cases is that's why detectives sometimes will obsess over cases for years. I mean, I'm only doing this in a 24-hour thing. I could go to bed tonight and wake up and go, oh, why are they in different locations? What is the issue here? Did they want to delay? I don't know. That's a good question. Now, here's another possibility. Okay, I'm going to come up with this since I'm thinking right now. Here's another possibility. Let's say Alice kills her daughter. And she panics and she thinks, I gotta do something. So she takes Alice out to the car, drives off, and puts Alice in some park area, and then comes back to the house and then confronts her son. And her son goes, "Did you kill Alice, Mom? I mean, did you kill Missy, Mommy?" She's like, "Ah, crap." And so she just gets in the car and drives and just goes and just driving. People are going through some kind of catastrophic situation, whether they plan it or not. They don't always do things in the most rational and smart way. So sometimes it's really hard to, and I'm trying not to do what the author does and just, I can now pretend I'm her and what she's thinking. I wouldn't know. Cause confusion. It's possible, but it's an odd kind of confusion. I mean, theoretically, the things underneath the window to me appear to be staged. That's what I think. So could a stranger have put those things there and climbed in? I just don't think so. So therefore, if they're there for a reason and it looks like somebody came in the window is up. Therefore, it would be staged. Who would stage it? The only people that stage it would be Alice and the estranged husband. They would stage it. So now if they've staged that, somebody's kidnapped the kids, why do they need to put them in two different locations? Why not just dump them in the same location? I don't have a good, Is she alive? I think she's still alive. Yeah. Um, Christoph, my opinion, two things come together here. A mother like that, suspicious. On the other hand, children who grow up in such circumstances are generally at risk from outside. Yes, I agree. I think I know what you're saying. That when they're basically neglected, they often seeking people's attention, and they're also sometimes just running around just by themselves and nobody's paying any damn attention to them. So they can be targeted by strangers. This is true. I just find it, if they are the type that run around outside unattended, that's the better time to simply grab the kids and take them someplace. Hey, come, you want to come see a kitty cat, that kind of thing, want some candy. You just drive up in a car and you grab them. Going in there in the night and trying to take two kids out of the room when the mother is at home, and try to, it's not that easy to take. It's a 5 and 4 year old, so they're kind of biggish, and it just doesn't really ring right to me. I don't think in this situation that the actual, what we know of them at the house, the apartment doesn't. I just don't see it happening that way. Let's see. Oh, okay. You say, I think she probably did it, but there's reasonable doubt. Well, there's certainly reasonable doubt from the outside of the trial, because we're both the book and the documentary are very, very harsh toward the police in this, the detectives. And she, by the way, he did take a polygraph and he did pass it. She refused. She started taking polygraphs. She freaked out and left. So not that we can use polygraphs in a court of law, but still interesting. But it's hard to tell when you have an agenda and you're going to write a book or do a whole documentary and your whole focus is on proving that the police were unfair to this woman because of her sexual choices and her behaviors, that she didn't want to be the traditional mom. They're basing everything on that, when I'm reading the book, that's what it seems to be. It's like everything is, goes down that avenue. So it's hard to know what the actual truth is, what the detectives actually learned in all of the interviews and all of the things that they did. I'm sure that's if they said supposedly claiming in the book that they didn't learn anything from the 3 years of taping her, but I don't know. I think it might be that they were damn sure it was her. Everything about her, not her behavior, not her sexual, little escapades. Just the fact that what she was saying didn't ring right to them. What she was saying didn't work right as far as the evidence goes. And so they believe she did it, but they couldn't have that final proof. And I think in court, it was maybe the crazy lady who said that she saw her, taking the kids away, that actually got her convicted, which may be wrong, that she shouldn't have got convicted on that. But again, I wasn't in the court, so not quite sure I noticed. Risk of being handling 2 bundles. Yeah, that's an interesting concept. It's as far as leaving the house, one might leave the house twice. Yeah, that's possible. Or one could be carrying one bundle but walking the other one. Then it doesn't look like you've killed anybody. So yeah. Let's see what else we have to say here. The distance from the house is telling for me. It would not make sense for a killer to go only a mile from the house in each direction to dump children. Yeah, that would be extremely odd. Sometimes they are fairly close by just because they only want to go as far as they need to go so they can then sexually assault them. But that doesn't appear to be what happened. So the lack of sexual assault on the girl is really odd. If it were a stranger abduction, what's the point? The kid's 4 years old. What are you doing with it? It's not like you're going to kidnap her and make her your daughter because she's got 4 years of knowledge and she can rat you out. And then why take the boy too? Why bother? And one of the things that people say is that They can't imagine a woman doing this. And yet we have case after case after case of women killing their children just like men kill their children. But when men kill their children, we sort of go, yeah, we'll get that. But when women kill children, we just can't seem to, doesn't compute in our head, because how could she do that to her? Look at her with the kids. Aw, you know? And again, we got to watch out for that, because we've all seen kids get killed by a parent who looked perfectly great as a parent. It's like, well, the person was a, homeroom monitor, and she, or a soccer coach or whatever, and you can't imagine a person who's taking care of their children then turning on their children and killing them. But as I say, you're either useful or in the way. And at a certain point, as a psychopath, that's what you are. If she killed her children, that's what she is. She's gone past the narcissism level to the psychopathy fringe. And maybe, having the children in the beginning was exciting. And part of the whole thing that I'm a woman, I have children. And then she realized it was a trap for her. And she didn't want to deal with it. And she wanted to be the free party girl. She wanted to have all that thrills and end up on somebody's yacht and end up in the Bahamas. She didn't want to do the drudgery stuff, and take care of those darn kids. And that lasts for a long time, because those kids were just barely getting into school. And then she's going to have to deal with getting them to school and back. And what about the homework? I mean, just, they can mess up your exciting lifestyle. So that's the way they think sometimes. Let's see. Harper says, I thought the killer walked, and if working alone would only be able to move. No, why would the killer be walking? Well, the children obviously were moved enough of a distance that nobody walked. If somebody had a car. She had a car. Which she had them in for the picnic and going to the store. And Tony, her one of her boyfriends, had a car. And her husband had a car. And the killer would have had to have a car. So everybody would have had a car. And I don't, unfortunately, in 1965, I don't know what they could find in her car, if they checked that, or the other guy's car. She did not like to be interviewed. She thought that they were always going out to get her and make her look bad. I can't remember if she interviewed for this book, though, a little bit. I think I saw that somewhere. But yeah, she didn't like to be interviewed. So, normally 2 children aren't kidnapped. Normally, no. I mean, it's hard enough to take 1 small child. It's just more work to take 2. That's definitely true. Clarissa doesn't like her. She shouldn't still be on this earth. Sorry. Well, it depends whether she did it or she didn't do it. So you're saying, Liz, accidental kill with a girl. Boy could have seen it and been led to a different location by mom's helper. Yeah, that's possible. And like I say, we just, unfortunately, the evidence is just limited. Christoph says, overall personality speaks volumes. Well, I think it did then, and I don't think it had anything to do with the issues that everybody else tried to make it out to be, misogyny and freedom for the women's movement and all this kind of stuff. I think it's just who she was. Postpartum. Kids were 4 and 5. Yeah. They're 4 and 5. It's pretty postpartum. But, kids are work. That's all there is to it. Because the neighbors would have noticed them driving. Okay, the other thing, I'm not sure where her car was parked either. Of course, in the middle of the night, I don't know how many people noticed that much, although there did seem to be some snoopy neighbors around there. But that one woman said she saw them walking to a car. It was the guy's car, though, not her car. But still, I don't know exactly where the cars are parked. I don't know the whole situation in the area. So again, there's so much missing that I can't possibly, get absolute. They heard them praying. That the one girl said she heard them praying. That would be when she was there and they were put to bed. The question then was, I questioned whether they were killed earlier in the day when I first heard the story. Like, did they really go on a picnic? Were they murdered during the picnic? And then they never actually came home, and all the rest of it was just a fake. But there seemed to be people saw them arriving at home. Then when she went to the store, I don't know about, because maybe she could have said the kids are in the car and that the store people wouldn't see them. But people supposedly saw them arriving home, and that the teenage girl heard them praying as she walked by the windows. So theoretically, they did get home and they did get in bed. And part of the thing that her defense team would say is like, look, she's not a bad woman. She took them on a lovely day, which she did. Oh, did I mention the drive? Oh, I forgot about the drive. I leave the drive out. Okay, so after she got the food, came home and fed them, then she took them on an hour-long drive, and she was driving around to find out whether dad's car was in his driveway and stuff. So she was sneaky stuff too. So she drove around for a whole hour with the kids and then brought them back and then got them ready for bed. And that's when the girl supposedly heard them praying. So the other part was, I thought maybe during that hour-long drive, she killed them during the drive and just dumped them along the way. That did occur to me. If that girl actually heard them. And here's where the problem comes down. Because why I thought that drive was a really weird thing to take. Why is she taking him on this drive? And then the other possibility is, by the way, let me think about this. The other possibility is that she had the kids pray and then she took them on the drive. In other words, she got them into their clothing, and then something got into her brain. She goes, hey, let's go on a little drive before you go to bed. But they're already in their night clothes and all that, and they go in the car and then to go for a drive. That's possible too, because I don't know that anybody saw when they went on the drive, when they left and came back. So I don't have any. Haven't seen any evidence anybody said that her car left and her car came back before the bedtime thing. So maybe the drive was after the bedtime thing. Maybe they went on the drive, and during the drive she got angry and she killed the girl, and then she, like, say, dumped her someplace. And then the boy's screaming and she dumped him someplace else. I don't know. I say there's all this stuff kind of floating around as theories, but really missing enough evidence to put it all together. Cops tried it and said she couldn't have heard them praying. It was like 200 yards away. I thought that wasn't the prayer thing. I thought that was the crazy lady saying that she saw them talking and all this stuff. This was supposedly a teenage girl walking by the apartment. Yeah, the window was, because it was open, because they had no air conditioning. They had no air conditioning. It was a hot summer night. Yeah, the drive before bed was very odd. Yeah, that struck me as weird. Struck me as very weird. Like your kids really want to go for a drive and just drive around, and maybe I can't remember. Was that when she got them? Maybe she did get them ice cream. She claims she got them ice cream in there. Therefore, then they get home, she cleans up, they have ice cream while they're driving around, then she cleans up and puts them in bed. So depending on whether you're on the defense or the prosecution, you can make that whole day sound like she's the greatest mother ever, or the whole day sound sketchy. It's not a bad, even if she did get the ice cream, maybe she did get the ice cream. Hold on a second. Let me see if she got the ice cream. If that book wasn't 400 pages, then it would help. It's a very long book. And I don't know what to believe of this guy, because I think he's too biased to actually necessarily know that he's accurate on anything. Because I don't have police documents or stuff like that. Let's see, ice cream. Okay. I think she did supposedly buy ice cream. Okay. She went on the drive, and after the drive, she had undressed the children, washed off their ice cream stains and accumulated debris of the day's playing, put fresh T-shirts and underwear on them, and put them to bed. At this moment, then, Teresa Costello was passed under the bedroom window on her way to a babysitting job across the mall. God bless Mommy and Daddy, she heard Eddie say. So there you go. From his book, that's what the claim is. So the crazy lady was the distant one. They sort of thought where she was too far away, that she couldn't have heard that, and there were trees and stuff. She couldn't have seen things. So it was quite questionable. Was it normal behavior? Well, according to the babysitter, she said it was quite. It said it had surprised Teresa that Alice insisted upon the children's evening prayers. The first time she babysat for Eddie and Missy, the boy told her they had to do something first before going to bed. Teresa watched as Missy and Eddie got on their knees in front of their beds and, half stumbling, said the prayers. Do you always do that? Teresa asked little Eddie. Yep, he replied. Alice's unusual religious faith was an incongruity that Teresa came to accept. Um, there you go. No, she was walking. She was walking under the window. Okay, she was walking next to the building. I think that's the whole thing. She was a teenager walking by the building, and the window was open. So, and she knew the kids. So, there's some logic to that. Oh my God, yeah. Maybe the drive was to scout locations for later. That could be, yeah, or the other possibility. I did think of this before, so I'm glad you brought that up. It could have been an attempt to commit the crime that failed. In other words, it could be a dry run where, okay, what am I going to do? Where am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And or it could have been, I'm going to take them and I'm going to do something to them. And then I'm going to pretend I brought them home and put them to bed and they got missing. And for whatever reason, she couldn't do it at that moment in time. So we can make up all kinds of possibilities in this, but I say that the evidence is just so limited. Some cases, you can click the evidence together and you go, well, and this is just not one of those. And it may be because a lot of times I won't even do cases this old. Sometimes I only do them at a hangout where I say, hey, there's not enough for a full show. So I'm just going to talk about this for like 15 minutes because I can't access enough of the evidence and information to do a proper analysis. And I think I originally thought that about this case, that I didn't have enough to work with. But then after I said I'd do it, then I was like, okay, now I've got to move forward. And I really still don't have enough. But it's still a very interesting case. So, yeah. There were picnics, long drives, and ice cream, the usual. I do not think so. I think that was unusual. And that's the question is, why would she suddenly do these nice things? Now, again, I'm not getting all the story. Maybe if I talked to all the neighbors and saw all the neighbors' reports and they said, oh, she always goes to the park with them every other day, or, oh, we always see her, whatever. But apparently they said the kids went around outside by themselves because mother was sleeping. And that somehow, I guess I had to jump out the window. I don't know. So I guess she didn't care if the kids jumped out the window and played, but she did care if they came out and ate the food out of the refrigerator. So she was more concerned about locking the bedroom door than locking the window. But then again, she didn't have any air conditioning on, so the window had to be open. But why was the screen out? And this other thing is weird. I don't hear anything about any questions in the documentary or the book. My question would be to her, why isn't the screen in the window? I want to hear about this. How there's a screen. I don't know. That also documentary put a screen there, so I don't know if that's even true. I have no idea. That's just a picture. But I would want to know, how long has the place been like this? What's been going on? She claims, by the way, she was recently cleaning a lot because social services is coming over and was going to judge her on how well she kept the place. So I'm going to say, as social services, if I came over and saw that hook on the door, I'd be concerned right there. And the fact that you bring men into the house and have sex with them and lock your kids in the room so they won't come out and annoy you. I think I would have given the custody to the father. So actually, everybody knows what happened, but you can't prove it. And then many. Wouldn't you want to clear your name? I don't know. Maybe she's fed. I mean, it's possible she could have been innocent. And one of the things I also had an issue with her, she didn't cry at the appropriate times. And of course, they point out that everybody grieves differently. People do grieve differently, but sometimes the way people don't grieve is like a red flag. She grieved more about herself than she ever grieved about the children, it appears. In other words, she was crying for herself over and over again, but for the children. And she said that she had their pictures in her wallet and that she privately grieved when she felt like it. There was nobody else's damn business. she's kind of a cold woman. She's kind of cold blooded. Oh, I didn't mention this. I forgot to mention this. Apparently, which is in the documentary, that after the kids found dead, she went swimming at her boyfriend's house, the married one. I guess the wife wasn't around. She went swimming in his pool, and they said, "How do you swim?" And she, "Oh, sometimes I have a swimsuit on, sometimes I don't." But this was after the kids were dead. And then she apparently went right back to her work and partying stuff. And one of the guys said that, "Hey, I used to think she was okay, but after the kids were dead and she was acting like it never happened, I was like done with her." And people could say she was. This is what they said in the documentary. There's one young woman there just keeps giving her every excuse in the book. She's like, "No, this is just the way." She was probably just drowning her sorrows in the liquor and pretending to be pretending to be happy, and that's the way she dealt with it. Okay. The other thing I didn't see much talked about was if somebody came and took your two kids and you didn't think it was your husband. She didn't ever accuse her husband of doing it, by the way. He didn't think she did it, and she said he didn't do it. So, which is interesting, because he'd be good. Either one of them would be good to blame if we're trying to get custody and trying to save your own ass. But she didn't seem to be very interested in finding out who kidnapped him. So, maybe she's like OJ, Now she really does sound like Casey Anthony. Yeah, she's say it's hard to. I have a hard time coming up with the stranger kidnapping because the way it was done seems awkward and difficult. Taking two kids instead of one makes little sense. The girl not being sexually assaulted makes no sense. So to me, I just don't come up with a stranger homicide. And then it only leaves probably these two. And I think he is totally alibied out as far as I can see. I can't come up with a good reason. So then we're back to her again. So if I were investigating this case, yes, she would be my number one suspect. And a lot of the complaints is that they didn't look at enough other people. Well, you don't when you believe this is the one who did it. You don't put your manpower into searching down every pedophile in the city when you don't think it's any of them. You just don't. If the husband has a reasonable alibi and you know that it's him, you don't think it's him. You're not going to waste your time trying to prove it's him. So that's why they were focused on her, because they thought she was guilty. And I say I wasn't there at the time. Maybe they overlooked stuff, and I would say, "Wow, you should have been looking at other people." But I just, I wasn't there. So he is adult. I think he was, to tell you the truth. They had some creepy things about him too, but yeah. So anyway, you say she only cared about herself and herself only. It does appear that way, but that again doesn't make you a murderess. But there are two dead kids, and but maybe she got just very unlucky. I mean, it's possible. I just don't know. So I have to leave it at that because I just can't prove anything further than that. So if I ever got more information, I might change my mind, or I might say, absolutely, she's guilty. So I'm glad you. I thought it was a fascinating case too, but apparently I don't think she had any kids with him at all. So maybe she just went off living the free life she wanted. Yeah, I don't know. I looked at the pictures in her wall once in a while and said, "Okay, too bad." But she was she was hard to like. That's for damn sure. She definitely was not a likable character in my opinion, but I guess very attractive to men because she was a good-looking woman. I mean, I'm looking at this picture of her, very attractive, and she probably knew how to entice men and I believe that one of the things she overlooked a lot of times is she may not have been a prostitute, but she may have been using men for money. I mean, men who were way older than her that you wouldn't think she would choose, but they were very, very wealthy, and she could hobnob with all the top people. So in a sense, it's having a sugar daddy, essentially. And I think that's what she was into. She knew she couldn't make the kind of money for the lifestyle she wanted. She was looking for the lifestyle of the yacht, of the Bahamas, of the pretty clothes and all that stuff. And that's what she wanted. And I don't think she intended to have the problem of ended up with two dead kids she had to go to prison for. But I wonder whether she she felt she could never have the life she wanted if those kids were still around. She just wanted to wake up one day and just be a different person, a free person, an unmarried person, and not a mother. But we will never quite know. We will. So anyway, I'm glad you're all here. Thank you, Sparks. I appreciate that. And TKM, I thought it was intriguing. I just wish I knew more. Guten Nacht. Wait a minute, I got the wrong one. Wait a minute, where'd you go? Yeah, good Nacht. Oh, thank you, Lisa S. I appreciate that. And I'll see, excellent choice for today. Well, it was a kind of a last minute thing. So Lisa Asher asked again, what do I think? I would lean toward her. I mean, I can't come up with anybody I'd lean more toward. So that's where I have to leave it. So anyway, I'll probably see if I hang out, depending on what happens. I have depending on what happens, what are we on? Probably will be Thursday during the day. I think that last one was in the evening, so it'll be during the day for the UK folk. I that was torture. I mean, it really was. That was hard. I mean, yeah. But you're welcome. So anyway, glad you had a good time. Click on things. You're most welcome, Lori. So anyway, I'll see some of you maybe on Thursday, maybe it'll be Wednesday, but we'll see. Till then, bye.